For thousands of years, the Earth has guarded its secrets, hidden in bones, sealed beneath ash, and buried in forgotten sands. Archaeology is the slow and patient art of peeling back those layers, uncovering fragments of stories that were thought lost forever. Every excavation, every bone, every shard of pottery has the power to rewrite what we thought we knew about the human past. And August 2025 was no exception. This month's discoveries stretch across continents and millennia, reminding us that history is not fixed but alive, always shifting, always surprising. High in Colombia's Altiplano, in a plateau once settled by some of the earliest peoples of South America, researchers made a discovery that could shake our understanding of the continent's past. Archaeologists and geneticists studied 21 individuals recovered from 5 ancient sites, including Chacua, a settlement more than 6,000 years old. When the DNA results came back, the genomes told a story no one expected. They did not match any known indigenous populations from North or South America, ancient or modern. Instead, they revealed an entirely new and previously unknown human lineage, a genetic branch cut off from the family tree of humanity as we know it. For 4 millennia, this small group thrived on the plateau, adapting to their environment, living, hunting, and gathering. And then, sometime around 2,000 years ago, they vanished. Their genetic signature disappeared from the population, replaced completely by newcomers. No descendants carry their blood today. Who were these forgotten people? And why did they vanish so completely? Were they absorbed by others, their lineage drowned out in the tides of migration? Or were they wiped out entirely by catastrophe, famine, or disease? For now, their silence is deafening. But their rediscovery cracks open a door into a chapter of humanity we never knew existed. Across the ocean, deep beneath the Krumlov forest in the Czech Republic, another haunting discovery emerged. Archaeologists excavating an ancient mine shaft uncovered 2 skeletons, both women, buried 6 meters below the surface. On the chest of one lay the remains of a newborn child. Beside the other, a dog's skull rested like a silent guardian. DNA testing revealed the 2 women were sisters, their bond in life carried into death. The child, however, was not related to either of them. Why was he buried there? And what was his connection to these women? Analysis of their bones tells a brutal story. They had spent their lives carrying heavy loads, bending forward under crushing weight, their spines permanently deformed by the endless strain of labor. One woman's forearm bore a fracture that had healed poorly, evidence that she had continued working despite her injury. They were miners, not elites, not ceremonial offerings, but real women whose bodies carried the scars of a life spent in the shadows of the earth. Their burial challenges long-held assumptions about gender roles in prehistoric mining. These were women who labored alongside men, contributing equally, enduring equally, and suffering equally. Yet the presence of the infant and the ritualized nature of deep shaft burials in this region suggests there was something more to this internment. Were these women honored as part of a sacred rite? Or were they simply laid to rest where they had toiled, their graves doubling as memorials carved into the rock itself? Whatever the answer, their story brings us closer to understanding the harsh realities of life and death in prehistoric Europe.
Meanwhile, in Shandong Province, China, a different kind of story surfaced. One not of pain and hardship, but of kinship and identity. At the Neolithic site of Fujia, covering nearly 40 hectares of land, archaeologists examined over 500 burials spread across 2 cemeteries used for more than 250 years. By analyzing the DNA of 60 individuals, researchers uncovered striking evidence of matrilineal descent. People buried together were connected by maternal ancestry, and the cemeteries themselves reflected generations of clans defined by the line of the mother. For a quarter of a millennium, families traced their identities through women, not men. This challenges the assumption that patriarchal systems dominated early agrarian societies. Instead, Fujia shows us that Neolithic East Asia harbored diverse social structures where women played central roles in preserving lineage, inheritance, and memory. Alongside this revelation came glimpses into their daily lives. Millet-based farming sustained them, livestock provided meat, and the nearby sea offered fish and shellfish. Together, the evidence paints a portrait of a stable, thriving community that organized itself through maternal bonds, a society where ancestry, family, and belonging were defined not by the father, but by the mother. Far to the west, in the shifting sands of Rajasthan's Thar desert, yet another surprise awaited archaeologists. For decades, the Harappan, or Indus Valley civilization, was thought to have flourished primarily along fertile river plains in what is now Pakistan and northwest India. But in August, the first confirmed Harappan settlement in Rajasthan was unearthed at a site named Ratadiya Rayodi. Pottery shards, stone blades, shell bangles, and even the remains of ancient walls and furnaces told the story of a thriving community that had adapted to desert life. The find pushes the boundaries of the Harappan world farther than ever before and hints that this civilization was far more versatile and expansive than scholars imagined. Was Ratatiya Rayodi a trade outpost, a settlement sustained by the now-vanished Saraswati River, or a testament to the Harappans' ability to adapt to even the harshest environments? Whatever the case, the discovery reshapes our map of one of humanity's earliest urban cultures. In southern Bulgaria, archaeologists uncovered a grave fit for legend. Beneath the earth lay a Thracian warrior, a man between 35 and 40 years old, buried alongside his horse. Bronze and gilded harness fittings adorned the animal, some bearing intricate depictions of Hercules himself, crafted with artistry that testifies to the metallurgical genius of the time. A wreath crowned the warrior's head, marking him as a man of honor and elite status. Another similarly rich burial found nearby suggests this was no isolated event, but part of a broader tradition of honoring Thracian elites in death. These burials bridge myth and reality, reminding us that in the ancient world, warriors were not only fighters, they were symbols of power, identity, and divine connection. And then the sea gave up its dead. Off the Mediterranean coast of Egypt, divers raised fragments of a city swallowed centuries ago by the waves. The ruins discovered in Abu Qir Bay may be an extension of Canopus, once a bustling hub of trade before Alexandria rose to prominence. Earthquakes, shifting geology, and rising seas dragged the city beneath the waves, but now its remains are returning to the light. Limestone buildings, carved reservoirs, docks, and statues. Among those statues was a granite figure more than 2 meters long, though headless, and the lower half of a Roman noble carved in marble. Most of the artifacts will remain underwater for conservation, but 4 were carefully lifted to the surface. These remnants tell the story of a city once alive with commerce and worship, now preserved in silence beneath the sea. Pompeii, too, revealed a secret long buried in ash. For centuries, the story seemed simple. Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 CE, the city was entombed, and life there ended forever. Pompeii became a frozen snapshot of destruction, a moment caught in time, preserved by tragedy. But now, new excavations challenge that neat ending. Beneath layers of ash and centuries of silence, archaeologists have found proof that Pompeii did not die in a single day. It lived on, reshaped and scarred, inhabited by people who returned to its ruins.
In the southern quarter of the ancient city, evidence tells a remarkable tale. Survivors, perhaps those who could not afford to start anew elsewhere, made their way back. Settlers and opportunists joined them, drawn by the promise of land, shelter, or perhaps the hope of valuables still hidden beneath the volcanic debris. They adapted the ruins in creative and desperate ways. The upper floors of once grand houses emerged from the ash and became new living spaces. Meanwhile, the buried ground floors, those elegant rooms once decorated with vivid frescoes and polished marble, were transformed into cellars, kitchens, and workrooms. In spaces once filled with art and luxury, archaeologists found hearths, ovens, and grinding mills. Life continued, but it was a harder, humbler existence. This settlement was far from the bustling Roman city Pompeii had once been. It lacked aqueducts, sewage systems, and the infrastructure that defined urban life in the empire. Instead, it was an improvised community, fragile and makeshift, where survival took precedence over grandeur. Yet the very act of living there speaks volumes about human resilience. What drives people to rebuild their lives in the shadow of catastrophe? Was it desperation, those too poor to leave finding no other choice? Or was it greed, fortune seekers combing through ruins for treasure? Perhaps it was something else entirely, the stubborn pull of home, the unwillingness to abandon the familiar, even in ruins. Whatever the motivation, Pompeii was not entirely abandoned. For centuries, its ruins pulsed with life in unexpected ways. Historical sources now take on new meaning. References to imperial attempts to refound Pompeii and Herculaneum may reflect awareness of these precarious reoccupations. Archaeologists now believe that informal communities persisted at the site well into the 5th century CE, only finally giving up their hold after later eruptions or the gradual collapse of Roman authority in the region. This revelation forces us to rethink Pompeii's story. No longer is it simply a city that died in fire. Instead, it becomes a testament to endurance, adaptation, and the messy reality of human survival. The people who lived among the ruins remind us that history is rarely as final as we imagine. Cities may burn, empires may fall, but human beings find ways to endure, even in places marked forever by disaster. And just as Pompeii teaches us about resilience, another discovery, far away in England, speaks of unexpected connections. In the quiet graves of early medieval cemeteries, the bones of children whispered of journeys across continents. At Updown in Kent, the remains of a 7th century girl, affectionately nicknamed Updown Girl, revealed a startling truth. 1/3 of her ancestry came from West Africa. Hundreds of miles away, in Dorset, the remains of a boy of the same era carried the same genetic imprint. Two children, separated by geography but united by ancestry, tell us a story far greater than their own short lives. Both were fully integrated into their communities. The girl was buried near maternal relatives, her presence accepted and honored, her life woven into the fabric of the village. The boy, though not related to others in his cemetery, was laid to rest with care in a community that clearly embraced him. These were not outsiders or strangers. They were children who belonged. Yet their DNA shows that their grandparents came from far beyond the familiar coasts of Northern Europe, from West Africa, across deserts and seas. This discovery challenges what we thought we knew about early medieval Britain. For too long, the narrative painted the island as an isolated land of Anglo-Saxon settlers, largely homogeneous and cut off from the wider world. But the truth is far richer, far more complex. These children prove that people moved across vast distances, carrying with them not just goods, but bloodlines, stories, and cultures. The Byzantine Empire, reasserting control over North Africa in the 6th century, reopened ancient trade routes across the Sahara and into Europe.
Gold, ivory, and amethyst traveled northward, but so did people. Their journeys brought new ancestry into the heart of Britain, reshaping communities in ways invisible to the eye, but indelibly written in their bones.
The implications are profound. These children remind us that the so-called Dark Ages were not dark at all, but alive with movement, connection, and diversity. They show us that early medieval Britain was more globalized than we ever imagined, a crossroads where distant worlds brushed against one another. In life, they played, laughed, and worked alongside their peers, never marked as different. In death, they reveal a hidden truth. History's borders are far more porous than we think. Each discovery from August 2025 deepens the riddle of who we are. Peoples who vanish without a trace, leaving behind only fragments of DNA and forgotten bones. Women who labored until their spines broke, remembered not as nameless workers, but as sisters who endured together. Communities who traced ancestry through mothers, showing us alternate ways of defining family and identity. Settlements that stretched civilizations into deserts, forests, and trade routes once thought unreachable. Warriors who went to their graves with their horses, wrapped in myth and honor. Cities drowned and raised again from the sea. Survivors who dared to live again in the ruins of catastrophe. And children whose ancestry tied Anglo-Saxon England to West Africa, forever reshaping our image of the past. Archaeology does not simply unearth the past, it unsettles it. It teaches us that history is never finished, never final. Every discovery answers one question, but raises 10 more. Who were the vanished Colombians, their genetic trail cut off in silence? Why was an infant buried with 2 sisters in a mine deep underground? What compelled families to return to Pompeii's ashes and build fragile lives among ruins? And how many more graves across Europe hide ancestries that remind us humanity has always been on the move, always connected, always far more diverse than we assume? The earth still whispers, and as archaeologists listen, with trowels, scanners, and DNA sequencers, they uncover not just the story of the past, but the echoes of ourselves. The earth still whispers. With every excavation, every scan, every shard, we draw closer to hearing its forgotten song. Some secrets will remain buried forever. Others rise again, dazzling, haunting, and humbling. They remind us that beneath our feet lies not just the story of kings and empires, but of ordinary people, miners, mothers, children, travelers, each with their own place in the endless, unfinished story of humankind.